The flag was gone. Just like that. Ripped clean off the pole sometime between 4 and 6 a.m. The screws dangled like broken teeth, swaying in the breeze, and for a moment I thought maybe a kid took it, some late-night dare. But the scratches around the bracket? Too deliberate. Too neat. That was no prank. That was a message. And then the sirens came. 2 patrol cars pulled up at the same time, tires hissing on gravel. One cruiser angled across the driveway, boxing us in. The other parked by the gate, lights still flashing like we'd just shot someone. I stepped out barefoot, flannel shirt, old sweatpants, coffee still steaming in my hand. Didn't even have time to put on socks. And there she was, Karen Benedict, head of the Homeowner Association, arms crossed like some kind of general, standing behind the cops like she'd summoned them from the heavens. Your wife assaulted me yesterday, she said, without so much as a hello. Her voice was all honey and vinegar. The officer closest to me, clean-shaven, maybe 30, looked unsure. Sir, is your wife inside the residence? I blinked. You're going to need to back the hell up and tell me what's going on first. He shifted on his heels. We received a call about an HOA-related violation and potential physical altercation. We're here to check in with the homeowner. Funny thing about being accused of assault at dawn. It scrubs the sleep right out of your veins. I set the coffee down on the porch rail. First off, I am the homeowner. Second, my wife hasn't laid a finger on anyone. Third, who the hell calls the cops because someone didn't open a door? Karen stepped forward. Her perfume hit before her words did. Sharp, cloying, expensive. She ignored direct HOA inspection protocol. I knocked repeatedly. She refused access. That's obstruction. And she verbally threatened me through the door. Lies. All of it. I was in the garage yesterday. Heard her knock. Laura just didn't answer. And she had every right not to. Your badge number, I said to the younger cop. Now. Behind me, the screen door creaked open. Laura stepped out slowly. Robe, calm eyes, no makeup, hair tied up like always when she means business. She didn't say a word, just looked at Karen, then the cops. The older officer, still at the car, reached for his radio. Control, be advised, we have contact with subject. Subject. Like she was some kind of threat. Laura raised a brow. You boys need a warrant? Karen gasped like she'd been slapped. Askew, you're interfering with an investigation. Karen barked. No. Laura said, her voice steady. You're trespassing. And unless you've got a legal right to be here, I suggest you move off our steps. The younger cop turned to his partner, visibly thrown off. And then Laura did the unthinkable. She stepped forward, past me, and looked the officers square in the eye. Turn off your radios. Silence. Do it. And they did. No questions. No hesitation. Just flicked their mics off like they were taking orders from a general. Karen froze. Laura reached into her robe pocket, pulled out a small black wallet. Badge. Silver. Clean. The seal of the state police glinting in the early light. Chief Laura Hensley, State Police Internal Affairs Division. This property is under observation. You are now interfering with an active internal probe. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came. Laura nodded toward the gate. You have 60 seconds to leave this property. After that, every second you remain becomes a line in your deposition. Karen stammered something about misunderstanding. She turned, heels crunching on gravel, and marched off like a deflated balloon. The cops didn't even look at me. They followed. Laura stood there a while longer, watching them go, silent, unblinking. I'd seen her in combat before, metaphorically, back when she was auditing corruption in Phoenix. But I'd never seen that look, like a steel blade wrapped in velvet. When she turned to me, her face softened, just a little. I was going to tell you, she said quietly. I swallowed. Tell me what? She didn't answer, just walked back inside. And right then, I knew something bigger was coming. Something heavier than a flag theft or HOA complaint. Something that had teeth, and my wife was hunting it. By nightfall, the flag was still gone, and so was Laura. She hadn't said where she was going, just that she needed to put some things in motion. I didn't ask. Maybe I should have. But after what I saw that morning, the badge, the voice that made grown men flinch, I figured she deserved few hours alone. Still, I didn't like it. The porch light cast long shadows over the gravel drive. And I kept thinking about those 60 seconds she'd given Karen. 60 seconds that felt like a countdown to something I couldn't name. I tried to focus. Cleaned out the shed. Fixed the rattling hinge on the side gate. Busy work. But every hammer tap echoed too loud, like the world was holding its breath. Around 8:30, I heard tires on the gravel. I stepped out fast, half hoping, half expecting. But it wasn't Laura. It was an old brown pickup I didn't recognize. Faded paint, one headlight out. The driver was a man I hadn't seen in years. Paul Bishop, I said, blinking. He climbed out slow, looking older than I remembered. Gray stubble, deep crow's feet, shoulders slightly slouched like someone who'd carried too many secrets for too long. Been a while, Mark, he said. Laura called me. Did she? He nodded, pulled a canvas duffel from the passenger seat, and slung it over his shoulder. She said you might need a hand. Said you were on the edge of something ugly. I stepped aside, motioned toward the house. It's already here, inside. Paul took one look at the flagless pole through the front window and whistled. She was right. We sat, drank, talked about nothing important for 20 minutes. Old mutual friends, road trips we never took, the way coffee tastes worse in government buildings. And then he leaned forward. You know Karen's not acting alone, right? I stared at him. Come again? She's not just a petty HOA tyrant. She's connected. Her brother's a city auditor. Her ex-husband's in zoning. That's how she keeps her leash tight. She gets to people, makes them complicit. Laura didn't just move here on accident. My stomach dropped. So this place, Paul nodded. It's a test site. Internal Affairs is sniffing rot through multiple counties. Your little patch of dirt? It's the bullseye. I stood, paced. The room felt smaller. And I'm the idiot who planted tomatoes in the middle of it. He smiled faintly. You're also the only one she trusted to live on the front line. That night, I couldn't sleep. Paul took the guest room. I stayed up on the porch, shotgun across my knees, just in case. Every coyote howl made my trigger finger twitch. Laura came back at 3:14 a.m., quiet as fog, no headlights. She parked down the slope, walked up the hill like a ghost. I thought I told you to sleep, she whispered. I didn't answer. Just looked at her. Her coat was dusty, boots stained red with clay, eyes sharp. She sat beside me, close. They're meeting tomorrow. Karen and her little war council. 9 a.m. at the clubhouse. Planning another false arrest? I asked. Worse, she said. They're drawing up a seizure notice. Claimed you violated landscaping code by removing a community symbol. I laughed dryly. The flag? She nodded. Us. They're going to try to seize the house. On paper, it's procedural. But it's a dry run. If it works here, they'll do it across the district. I felt something burn in my chest. So, what do we do? She looked at me then. Not like an officer, not like a wife, like someone trying to decide how much truth a man could handle. We let them think they've won. I blinked. Come again? Aunt Silva's right. We give them just enough rope to tie the knot themselves. And when they're standing on the chair... She didn't finish the sentence. The wind rustled the pines. Somewhere in the dark, an owl cried, and that's when I realized. This wasn't just a game of law and bylaws. It was war. And my wife? She wasn't just in it. She was leading it. I woke up to the sound of the coffee pot clicking off. Paul was already at the table, scribbling something onto a yellow legal pad. A half-eaten apple in his hand. Laura stood at the stove, hair damp from the shower, her sleeves rolled up like she was prepping for surgery. The air smelled like eggs, hot metal, and the kind of tension that doesn't go away after one good night's sleep. She looked at me and handed over a mug. Eat fast. You've got 30 minutes to become a compliant citizen. Paul didn't look up. He's not going to like this part. I already don't, I muttered. Laura slid a folder across the table. Inside, photos, building permits, copies of our property plat, and a fabricated violation letter stamped with the Homeowner Association's seal. They're going to serve this at the meeting. We need them to think we'll fold. So what do I do? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You go to the meeting, alone, and you agree with everything they say. I laughed. Come on, you're serious? Deadpan. Mark, we need their guard down. If you push back, they'll sniff something's off. But if you show up, play the dumb husband, they'll eat it up. Paul leaned back, crossed his arms. The man's got pride. Don't ask him to spit on it unless you're sure. Laura looked at me, softer now. This is the only way we get them to expose themselves. You give them the illusion of control. Then we pull the floor out. I didn't like it, but I nodded. At 8:50, I pulled up to the clubhouse. It sat like a smug little toad at the top of the hill. Brick facade, manicured hedges. American flag whipping in the breeze like it owned the wind. Karen's SUV was already there. So was Councilman Wrigley's silver Lexus. And a third car I didn't recognize. Black Lincoln. Government plates. Inside, the meeting was already underway. Folding chairs, a pitcher of lemon water, a stack of pre-printed agendas with my name in bold. Karen smiled like a shark. Mr. Hensley, so good of you to join us. Councilman Wrigley gestured to a seat. Please, take a moment to review the violation packet. I sat. Leafed through it, slowly. Half the document was nonsense. violations about grass height, paint color, even the type of screws used on the mailbox. All backdated. All signed. Karen folded her hands. We're willing to offer a resolution, Mr. Hensley. A buyout. The association will take custody of the property, and you'll be offered a relocation stipend. I looked up. You want to buy my house? Technically, we already have the right to seize it, she said, smile tightening. This is just a more amicable path. My hands itched to grab the table and flip it. But I remembered Laura's voice. Let them believe. I exhaled, nodded. Look, I didn't come here to fight. I just want peace. Wrigley leaned in. That's the right attitude. We'll file the paperwork this afternoon. You'll vacate within 72 hours. Karen stood, extended her hand. Thank you for being reasonable. I shook it, and when I did, I noticed the tremble in her fingers. She was excited. Too excited. Which meant they thought it was over. That night, back at the house, I told Laura everything. Paul recorded it while I recounted the meeting, word for word. Master, they're pushing the documents through fast, I said. They want me out before the weekend. Laura nodded. Then we have 48 hours to flip the table. Paul tapped the recorder. You sure this'll be enough? Laura stared at the waveform. It's not just the recording. It's what comes next. We're not stopping them. We're baiting them. Paul raised a brow. And when they bite, she turned to me. Then it's your turn. That night, I stood in the backyard, staring at the hole I'd started digging a year ago for a root cellar. We'd never finished it. Got distracted. Life got busy. Now I looked at it like it was a grave. And maybe in a way it was. Not for me. For them. Because tomorrow I was going to give them exactly what they wanted. And they'd never see the bottom falling out until it was too late. I spent the next morning preparing the way a man prepares for a funeral he's not sure will be his own. Weeds got pulled. Gutters cleared. The porch was swept like it mattered. Paul didn't say much. He was in and out of the truck, making calls, checking gear. Whatever his past life was, it had teeth. The man carried himself like a mechanic who also knew how to handle classified material. Laura, meanwhile, locked herself in the study. I only caught glimpses, her pacing, typing, printing something over and over. I heard her on the phone, speaking in clipped bursts, using codes I didn't recognize. All I knew was she kept saying one phrase. Confirm secure link, Sector Echo. By noon, we had visitors. Karen pulled up in a pearl white crossover. Lips tight. Blazer sharp enough to cut granite. With her came two others. A man I didn't recognize. Blonde, suited, soft hands, and that same Councilman Wrigley, who looked like he'd swallowed a canary. I stepped out onto the porch before they knocked. Karen barely looked at me. We're here to finalize the transition. I nodded, kept my face slack. Come on in. They followed me into the living room like realtors about to tour their next acquisition. The blond man opened a leather folio and started reading. Mr. Hensley, pursuant to subsection B12 of the Homeowner Association's charter and your expressed willingness to comply, this document transfers property rights effective immediately to... He stopped. Laura walked in. She was still in jeans and boots, but the badge was out, and this time it wasn't hidden. Before you proceed, she said calmly, I need all of you to state your full names and titles. For the record. Karen's jaw dropped. Excuse me? Laura didn't blink. You're on record. This property is currently part of an ongoing investigation into administrative fraud and coercion. Please state your name. Wrigley stepped forward, puffing out his chest. I'm a councilman. You can't. I can and I am, Laura cut in. And if you leave now, I'll consider this your last mistake instead of your first felony. The blond man looked like he wanted to disappear. He closed the folio, took a half step back. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Laura raised the folder she'd been printing all morning. She tossed a stack of papers on the coffee table. Here are emails between Karen and the zoning office. Here's your signature authorizing falsified violations. Here's a log of financial transfers flagged by state law. One page is a list of properties targeted for the same scheme. Karen's voice cracked. You can't use that. That's illegally obtained. Paul appeared in the doorway behind them, arms crossed, a phone still recording in his hand. Actually, he said, you emailed them from your HOA server. Public records. You really ought to brush up on IT law. Wrigley turned pale. The blond guy backed toward the door, and then Karen did something unexpected. She laughed. One sharp, dry sound. You think this scares me? I'll have lawyers here in 10 minutes. Laura stepped closer. And while they're on their way, I'll be submitting this to the Attorney General's office. You'll be in hearings before sundown. You can drag your reputation behind you all the way to court, or you can resign quietly. Karen's face twisted. This is entrapment. No, Laura said softly. This is justice. They left in a hurry. No signatures. No buyout. Just silence and tires on gravel. I leaned on the wall, heart racing. Paul whistled low. That was the soft part? Laura turned to me. It was the preview. That night, we sat in the kitchen with the lights off. One lamp lit the table. On it sat a red folder marked Confidential, and a bottle of rye I'd been saving since my father passed. We're not done, Laura said. Tomorrow's when the real work starts? I looked at her. Her face was tired but still fierce. And for the first time, I realized what it had cost her. Hiding, waiting, watching. What do you need me to do? I asked. She stared at the folder, then at me. I need you to go to the association's next board meeting. And do what? She looked me straight in the eye. Run for president? I laughed. Not out of humor. God, no. It was one of those dry, stunned laughs that comes when the floor drops out from under you and someone hands you a rope and says, climb. Run for president? Of the Homeowner Association? I'd rather gut a raccoon barehanded. But Laura wasn't smiling. She sat across the table, eyes steady. Not pleading, not forcing, just waiting, like she already knew the answer. You want me to run for president of the very cartel trying to evict us? She nodded once. They're weak right now, fractured, publicly disgraced. The only thing holding them together is inertia. You get on that ballot, you expose the farce. Paul chimed in from the living room. They won't see it coming. They think you're just a pawn. I rubbed my temples. I fix barns, Laura. I'm not a politician. Shav. She leaned forward. No, you're a man who can look another man in the eye and make him flinch without saying a word. That's what this neighborhood needs. You want me to clean up their mess? I want you to set fire to their system from the inside. Those words echoed long after the lamp was off, and the house fell quiet. I didn't sleep. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, remembering every sneer, every thinly veiled threat Karen had thrown our way, every smirk from Wrigley, every whisper behind our backs from neighbors who didn't know the half of it. By morning, I knew what I had to do. The sign-up form for candidacy was buried 6 pages deep on the HOA website. Of course it was, hidden like contraband. But I found it, printed it, filled it out, and walked it straight to the temporary board office, which had been moved to the back of the community fitness center. The young woman at the desk raised an eyebrow when she read the name. "You're running?" "Looks like it." She didn't smile, just stamped the paper and filed it away. I could already feel the whispers beginning. Within hours, flyers went up across the neighborhood. Not mine. Karen's. Bright, full-color posters with slogans like integrity, order, community. Her photo was airbrushed within an inch of its life. Meanwhile, I had duct tape and an old stapler. Paul helped me hang my flyers. Just black text on white paper. Mark Hensley. No nonsense. No lies. We posted them on telephone poles, trees, even the dog park bulletin board. And then came the fun part. Karen hosted a Yali Meet the Candidates event in the clubhouse 2 days later. Tables, name tags, little bowls of mints. She wore a crimson pantsuit and enough foundation to spackle a wall. I came in jeans and boots. The room buzzed when I walked in. Conversations dipped. Eyes turned. Karen's smile froze as I approached. "Mark," she said tightly, "didn't expect you here so early." Wouldn't miss it," I said, and took my seat at the end of the candidate row. They let her go first, of course. She spoke like a senator, all buzzwords and rehearsed charm. I stood when my turn came, cleared my throat. "My name's Mark. I've lived here just under a year. I believe the Homeowner Association should serve the people who live here, not rule them. That's it." No applause, just silence, which was fine. Afterward, people came up. Not many, but enough. An older couple who'd gotten fined for wind chimes. A single mom who'd been threatened over her kid's trampoline. No one spoke loudly, just little nods. Quiet support. Later that night, Karen's newest flyer went up. This one, not so subtly, suggested I had ties to militant groups because of one photo years ago of me in uniform standing next to a guy who'd later gotten arrested in a protest. Real classy. I tore it down myself, but I didn't get mad. Because I realized something. She was scared, not of losing, of being exposed, and I was only getting started. 2 nights later, someone slashed the tires on my truck. Paul found it first. We'd just finished replacing a busted fence post behind the shed when he walked around front and froze. All 4 tires shredded. Knife work, clean, fast. No fingerprints, just gravel impressions from boots that came and went quick. He didn't even swear. Just looked up at me and said, "They're done pretending." Laura called it in like it was routine. No panic, no theatrics, just facts. Vehicle sabotage, likely HOA connected, catalog, and move on. I watched her talk to the dispatcher, with the same calm voice she used when ordering Chinese takeout. That scared me more than the slashed tires. Paul fixed the wheels by midday, brought in a set from a buddy who owed him. But I didn't take the truck out again that night. Didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing I flinched. The next morning, a letter showed up, hand-delivered. No stamp, no envelope, just a folded sheet of paper wedged into the screen door, with my name scribbled on top in red ink. Inside, a threat. Archum, withdraw your candidacy or we make this personal. No signature, no flourish. Just 7 words and a promise. I didn't show it to Laura. I should have. Instead, I walked out back, stood by the fire pit, and fed the note to the flames. That evening, Laura sat me down, said the final board meeting before the election had been moved. Quietly. No announcement on the HOA site, no flyers. Just a private list circulated among approved members. You weren't invited, she said, which means they're planning something off the books. Paul leaned in. You want me to crash it? Laura shook her head. No. We'll do worse. We'll let them think we don't know. Then we listen. We spent the next day wiring the clubhouse. Paul planted 2 bugs. One in the light fixture over the main table, the other in a fake smoke detector. We sat in the truck down the street, headphones on, windows up, waiting. They arrived one by one. Karen, Wrigley, the soft-handed lawyer again. A new face this time, too. A woman named Elena Cross, recently appointed to the association's compliance committee. She spoke with an accent and a voice like broken glass. The conversation was what you'd expect. Damage control, smear strategies, and backdoor deals. But then Elena said something that made my stomach twist. We don't need to beat him, she said. We need to disqualify him, quietly, before the vote. Karen asked how. Elena didn't hesitate. What? We frame him. 1 call to zoning. 1 staged incident. He threatened someone. We've got it on tape. That's enough to ban him from candidacy. I looked at Laura. Her jaw was locked tight. They're going to try to provoke you, she said. Corner you. Make you snap. And they'll be recording the whole thing. So what do I do? I asked. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You let them frame me? No. Let them think they're framing you. The plan was dangerous. Maybe even reckless. But by then, I understood something. These people didn't just want power. They wanted humiliation. They wanted to grind you down and make you thank them for it. And that was something I couldn't let happen. So the next morning, I mowed the lawn, right up to the edge of the fence, right past the invisible line they claimed belonged to the HOA, right where I knew Karen's cameras could see me. And then I trimmed the hedges, with music blaring, shirtless, because I wanted them to watch. I wanted them to come to me. And just before sunset, they did. Karen arrived with Elena and 2 uniformed security contractors. Not police, just private muscle with oversized badges and bad posture. You're trespassing, Karen barked. That strip of land is under HOA jurisdiction. I didn't answer. Elena stepped forward. Please step back. This is your final warning. I wiped sweat from my brow with the back of my hand, leaned on the hedge trimmer, and said, Then I guess you better arrest me. The security guy raised his phone. Recording. Hostile, he muttered. Uncooperative, threatening posture, and then I did the thing they didn't expect. I laughed, loud, full-bodied, like I'd just heard the best joke in years. Karen blinked. You think this is the first time someone's tried to scare me off? I said. I've been through divorce, war, and cancer. You people? You're a mild inconvenience. The camera kept rolling, but it didn't matter, because the real lens was already inside their clubhouse. And tomorrow, the whole neighborhood was going to hear what kind of people they were really dealing with. Election day started like any other morning, but the air felt different, charged, still, like the whole town was holding its breath. The wind barely moved, but the trees outside swayed as if something bigger than weather was passing through. Laura made coffee. Strong. No words, just the quiet clink of cups and the slow drip of the pot. Paul stood by the window, eyes on the road like he expected a convoy. Me? I sat at the table and stared at my boots, wondering how I'd gone from retired builder to political landmine in the span of 3 weeks. At 9 sharp, the clubhouse doors opened. Residents trickled in, old couples in matching windbreakers, young parents juggling toddlers and ballots, loners who never showed up for anything but couldn't resist the smell of blood in the water. The vote wasn't digital. HOA insisted on paper, claimed it was secure. In reality, it was easy to manipulate. But this time, Laura had made sure each ballot was stamped and registered by the Secretary of State's office. Every vote would be checked, verified, locked. Karen stood near the refreshments table, surrounded by her shrinking loyalists. Her suit was dark green today, but her smile was brittle. Wrigley wasn't there. Neither was the blonde lawyer. They'd vanished after the bugged meeting. What Karen didn't know was that Elena Cross, her newest attack dog, had already been disqualified. Turns out Elena had a suspended license in 2 states and a fake address on her board paperwork. Laura had sent the document straight to the ethics division 2 days prior. Elena disappeared like smoke. At 10:30, Karen approached me. You really think you've won something? She hissed, just loud enough for me to hear. I looked at her. Really looked. The paint-thick makeup, the twitch in her eye, the way her perfectly manicured hand clutched her designer folder like a weapon. No, I said. I think you lost something. And you're the only one who doesn't know it yet. She stepped closer. This community is mine. I smiled. Not anymore. Voting closed at noon. The ballots would be counted publicly in the main hall at 2. Until then, we waited. I sat on the steps outside with Paul, chewing sunflower seeds and listening to Laura pace behind the glass doors, like a general planning an ambush. The tension was thick. People didn't talk politics out loud, but you could feel the shift. The small nods from strangers, the guarded optimism. Karen walked past once, but this time no one moved to greet her. That silence was louder than any speech. At 1:55, Laura appeared in the doorway. It's time! We walked in together. The boardroom was full. Dozens of residents lined the walls. Some stood, some sat, all watched. Karen took the podium first. Rambling. Vague. She thanked the community for its continued trust and said something about upholding tradition. But even her voice sounded tired, hollow. Then they called my name. I didn't prepare a speech. Didn't need one. I walked up slow. Looked at every face in the crowd. My name is Mark Hensley. I believe we've all had enough of fear dressed up as order. That's all. A pause. No applause, just stares. And then someone in the back clapped. Another followed. Then more. By the time I stepped down, the room was filled with the sound of it. Not thunderous, not wild, but steady, honest. The votes were counted out loud. The first 10 split, then 20 more, leaning my way. By the time they hit 70 ballots, Karen's face had turned to granite. At 94, it was mathematically impossible for her to win. One of the old board members called it. By a count of 62 to 32, the new president of the Homeowner Association is Mark Hensley. No celebration, no confetti, just the sound of a community realizing something had shifted. Karen stood still, frozen. Then, slowly, she packed up her folder, walked out of the room, and didn't look back. But that wasn't the end. As the room cleared, Paul handed me a manila envelope. What's this?" I asked. He nodded to Laura, who was standing off to the side, arms crossed. "Final piece," he said. Inside were transcripts. From the bugged meeting, full audio. Full detail. Names. Timelines. And one final note from Laura. Your move. How you lead matters more than how you win." I looked at the crowd. Some lingered. Hopeful. Others, cautious. And I knew what I had to do. Because this wasn't just about beating Karen. It was about building something better than the war we just survived. And I wasn't going to waste that chance. The next morning, the neighborhood felt different. Not quieter, just clearer. Like someone had finally scrubbed the film off the windows. I stood on the porch with my usual cup of black coffee and watched a jogger wave instead of pretending not to see me. Across the street, the Martins were rehanging their porch swing. The one Karen had fined them for last fall. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was a beginning. Laura joined me a few minutes later. Barefoot. Hair still damp. Holding her own mug like a shield. "So," she said, "you ready to be king of the angry lawn signs?" I grinned. Can't be worse than drywalling my cousin's garage in 90-degree heat. But deep down, I knew the real work was just starting. Winning had only cracked the door. Now I had to push it open without getting crushed. I spent the next few days going through every document the previous board had buried, in file drawers and encrypted folders. Paul helped. His brain worked like a safecracker's, meticulous and fast. We found records that hadn't been touched in 5 years. Backdated permits, fabricated complaints, even a bonus structure hidden in the landscaping contracts that funneled cash to Karen's brother's firm. Laura stayed out of it. She said her part was done. "If I stay too close," she said, "it'll look like we're consolidating power. You need to do this on your own." And she was right. On Friday, I called an emergency meeting. No catering, no decorations, just folding chairs, cheap coffee, and truth. I stood in front of 45 neighbors and laid it all out. I won't pretend I know what I'm doing yet. But I know what we've all lived through. You were fined for leaving bikes on your porch, harassed for planting native shrubs, threatened for repainting your shutters. That wasn't order. That was control. And I think we all deserve better. I handed out copies of the documents. Real names, real dates. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I let the paper speak. Someone in the back said, "We didn't know." And I said, "You weren't supposed to." After the meeting, a few folks lingered. They asked questions, made suggestions. One guy even offered to mow the median strip, just because it's time someone did. It was small, but it mattered. That night, just after midnight, someone knocked on our door. I opened it to find Karen standing on the porch. No makeup, no suit. Just jeans, sneakers, and a pale green sweater. She looked 10 years older, maybe 20. Her eyes were hollow but alert. Can I come in? Laura appeared behind me, silent. I nodded. Living room. Karen walked in like a ghost, sat down on the edge of the couch, as if afraid it would reject her. I thought this would break you, she said. All of it. I thought if I pushed hard enough, you'd just go away. I sat across from her. You were wrong. I see that now. She looked around the room like she was seeing it for the first time. My father used to run an HOA back in Arizona. He was strict, obsessed with neat lawns and rule books. Said it kept the wrong people out. I guess I learned early how to hide control behind a clipboard. I didn't interrupt. Laura didn't move. Karen exhaled. They're going to investigate me. You know that, right? I nodded. They already are. I won't run. I won't fight it. Silence. I just wanted to say, she paused. I'm sorry. Not that it fixes anything, but I am. I believed her. Not because she said the words, because she looked like someone who'd finally stopped running. She stood, head down. As she reached the door, Laura stepped aside. Their eyes met. Thank you for not humiliating me publicly, Karen whispered. Laura didn't smile, but her voice was calm. You did that part yourself. Karen left, and just like that, it was over. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. Like the kind of tired that comes after digging out a storm shelter all day with your bare hands. Useful? Necessary. But damn if it doesn't leave you sore in places you forgot you had. Still, when I sat back down, Laura brought me a fresh cup of coffee. No words, just the heat of it in my hands. And I realized we were finally safe enough to sit in silence and let the quiet mean something. A week passed. The banners were gone. The flyers, too. Even the clubhouse bulletin board looked different, like it had taken a deep breath and finally let go of all the noise. People waved more. Dogs barked less. Or maybe I just started noticing the quiet, because for once, no one was trying to take something from me. I got used to early mornings with Laura again. She still didn't say much, but her silence had changed. It wasn't cold or calculating anymore. It was steady, like a riverbed under calm water. Paul had moved on to a new contract up north, but he left behind a note on the fridge that just said, "Don't get soft." I kept it there. My first act as president of the Homeowner Association was to abolish the monthly fine minimum. Turns out Karen had instituted a quota. The board had to issue at least $3,000 in fines each month, or they'd be penalized by a private legal firm on retainer. That contract gone. Then came the complaint audits. Laura helped set up a public portal, anonymous submissions, open record logs. We called it the Clear Ledger. No one could accuse their neighbor in secret anymore. If you had a problem, you had to put your name on it. The change was slow, awkward. People didn't know how to talk to each other without fear or filters. But something started to grow. Real conversations. Offers to help. Less tattling, more fixing. I didn't do it alone. I didn't even try to. I asked that single mom from the candidate night to join the new board. The Martins, too. A retired librarian named Ed, who used to keep to himself, started drafting revised bylaws in his garage. It was a strange little democracy, patched together with old coffee cans and open windows, but it was ours. A month in, someone spray-painted the fence around the old HOA storage lot. Big red letters. No kings, no Karens, just neighbors. I laughed so hard I dropped the rake. But there was one last thing to settle. One final thread I hadn't pulled yet. It was a Wednesday when I found the folder again. The one Paul had handed me the day I won. Inside were full transcripts of that secret meeting. The recordings we never released. They were damning. If I turned them in, Karen and a few others would be formally charged. Wrigley could lose his seat. Elena would never work again in public management. I sat with that folder for hours. Laura didn't say a word. Just passed by now and then, refilling her tea, glancing at me like she already knew what I'd do. And I'll be honest with you, I thought about it. Thought about vengeance dressed up like justice. Thought about mailing it all to the state and watching the hammer drop, but I didn't. Instead, I sealed the folder and drove it down to the county office. Asked them to log it as confidential evidence. Not for prosecution, for record. Let it sit there like a sleeping dog, in case it's ever needed. Because leadership, real leadership, isn't about burning down the house your enemy built. It's about deciding what kind of house you want to live in after the fire's out. That night, Laura and I sat on the back porch. The cicadas were loud. The moon was soft. I asked her if she ever missed the job. She shook her head. I don't need the badge. I've got you. I took her hand. Rough, warm, steady. I said, this place finally feels like home. She smiled. That's because you fought for it. And I realized, maybe for the first time, that home isn't where you hide from the world. It's where you stand when the world tries to push you out. And you don't move. Not one damn inch.